the other big story I want to ask you guys about, because you understand the rhythms of this, is the SAVE Act. Uh, the only way to pass the SAVE Act would be to get rid of the filibuster, and it's pretty clear that John Thune's not going to do that and doesn't have the votes to do that. Here is the president today talking about why this is an important piece of legislation to him, and he does wish the Senate would get rid of the filibuster, at least for this. Here's the president, number 18.
Save America Act. We've changed the name. It's the Save America Act, and the Democrats are against it. I heard one of them say, we will stop the Save America Act. No, we're trying to save America. And it has to do with largely voting. And basically, it's got three very simple points. It's got voter ID, photo ID, but voter ID with a photo, right? It's got the confirmation of U.S. citizenship. You have to be a citizen. So you have a vote, you have an ID. That's about a 99% one. And I think 90% with Democrats. Then you have confirmation U.S. citizenship. That's about a 99% one with Republicans, about 86% with Democrats, except Democrat politicians because they cheat on elections. And then you have no mail-in ballots. And there would be no mail-in ballots, very important. You know, we're the only country in the world that does a system like we do. We're the only country in the world that has mail-in ballots. The way we do this is unbelievable. It guarantees cheating. So it's no mail-in ballots with the exception of disability, illness, military, or if you're traveling, you can get an exemption. You know, if you happen to be out of the country for a good reason, you can have an exemption. So with exceptions, it's no mail-in ballots, and that will assure the security of our crooked elections. We have crooked elections.
Okay. Jim, I don't find too many Democrats who are open to the notion of requiring that kind of ID to vote. Republicans are pretty united too. As a Democrat who's interested in good public policy, even if it's at the expense of the party, could you see some sort of compromise on this with the president, or are you just dead set against it?
I think Democratic messaging on this is awful because they're saying this is a civil rights thing and they're saying that it's racist. And I don't see that as the problem with the SAVE Act. The reason why I think the SAVE Act is a non-starter is elderly people would have a very difficult time voting. Like elderly people, especially my parents in 2024, like they're wheelchair bound. They couldn't get to the polls. So that's the people who would really be hurt, because what SAVE Act really does is it eliminates mail-in voting, and that's tens of millions of people who do that. So if there was some way to do this where you could still have mail-in voting, and I don't see how that's possible, then I could see some compromise, but I haven't heard an idea that saves mail-in voting.
Well, the president said if you had some reason to do it, you could still do it if you were overseas.
Okay, that's 60 million people. I mean, like, there's so many people who are old, who are over the age of 80. Like, how many hoops do you have to jump through to vote? I mean, I think if I was AARP, I would come out with all guns ablaze and say, like, this is trying to make sure old people don't vote.
Okay, let's go to Mitchell. Mitchell, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are what's on your mind for Jim and for Chet.
Hello, calling in from Arizona. I wanted to talk briefly about the SAVE Act because there's a lot made about the requirements for citizenship and identification and whatnot. But as somebody who's a Second Amendment advocate, the Democrats have been proposing all kinds of restrictions for decades now on exercising your Second Amendment rights. And so currently, even in one of the looser states, Arizona, in order to exercise that right to purchase a firearm, it requires a photo ID with your current address, an attestation that you are a U.S. citizen, that you're not a drug user, that you have nothing that would put you in jail for over a year, the entire list of things. And then there's an FBI background check that is done on you to verify that you are in fact eligible. So if it's reasonable for the Second Amendment, why is it so unreasonable to just have a confirmation that you're a citizen and an ID to vote?
Great question. Jim, first.
So, Mitchell, I think that's one of the reasons why this issue, when you poll it, it polls very well on the Republican side, because I think that is a very logical way to ask the question. So the first way I'd answer it is when you register to vote, you have to prove a lot of things. Okay. So like the act of registering to vote has a lot of that part to it, not the act of voting itself. Um, the process of voting, the fraud is when somebody is voting instead of and using your name instead of you. Well, there's a lot of fail-safe systems there again. The final thing I would say was the thing I said earlier, which is the SAVE Act eliminates mail-in voting. And we don't, you can't buy a gun over the mail either. But that's how a lot of people vote. And so I think we need to preserve that.
And I suppose the question that I have on the
Yeah.
mail-in voting thing is that there's a lot of get out the vote campaigns. There's a lot of money that's involved in door knocking, getting people out to vote. Why can't some of that simply be redirected to assist people get to the polling locations for people who have difficulty getting there?
Well, I'll just use my parents as an example. Like they were in assisted living, and like you can't do it. And also, yes, there could be an effort if you're voting on one day out of the year, maybe you're vote, maybe not, maybe you have extended voting. So it's like, okay, how do you get people to the polls? But I think the premise that there is a ton of voter fraud out there and a ton of illegal immigrants who are voting, like we are just not seeing real evidence of that. We're seeing kind of internet sleuth evidence and conspiracy theory evidence, but we're not seeing real evidence. So in some ways, I feel like we're solving a problem that doesn't really exist with a solution that's really hard to do. Granted, the solution makes a lot of intuitive sense, Mitchell, when it's framed, but I think the reality is more difficult.
Chet, thoughts?
I'm gonna get in a lot of trouble for saying this, but I agree with Jim. One, I'm at home. I like voting by mail. I never went into a ballot place to actually vote, and I think that the president is over-indexing on this issue. I spent a lot of time working with other Republicans nationwide on this issue around voting and looking at voting fraud, and we've actually even worked with liberal organizations like the Southern Poverty Law Center. I think that there certainly are bipartisan solutions to be able to address this issue. We can require people to have voter ID, but it needs to be coupled with empowering people to get that ID, making it free for people below a certain income level, being able to provide government assistance to improve the systems to get your birth certificate and other things to automate it. And so if the federal government can provide those resources and support in doing that, I think that would be great. I think the miss in this SAVE Act is that it's myopically focused simply in these one areas of eliminating things, and ultimately I think has a negative externality in creating some roadblocks to people that ultimately feed into this narrative that Republicans don't want more voters. I think what Republicans should be doing in this case is saying, great, we want everybody to ID, and we're actually going to help people to make it easier for people to get IDs and easier for them to vote. And then I think that addresses the major concerns here. And I think that's the biggest problem we have right now with the SAVE Act.
Cozy Earth. Cozy Earth products available to you now at an extraordinary discount. 20% off. Go to cozyearth.com. Use the promo code two-way. This entitles you to get 20% off the bubble cuddle blanket, 20% off the towels, 20% off the sheets, 20% off the finest pants you've ever had. I'm going to a comedy club tonight here in New York City. I will be wearing the exact same pants I wore at a private club earlier today, having lunch with a friend. That's the magic of the Cozy Earth pants. You can wear them anywhere. And by the way, why am I wearing them to both places? Because they're more comfortable than any pair of sweatpants I own. CozyEarth.com, 20% off. Go to CozyEarth.com. Use the promo code two-way. Buy the pants, buy the sheets, buy the towels, buy anything you want. Get 20% off. And if you've never bought anything, I keep telling you this, buy one thing. Just go on the website, buy one thing, use your 20% off discount, and just see if I'm right, that the Cozy Earth products are extraordinarily comfortable, soft, well made, and at a great price. Try it now, CozyEarth.com. Again, use the promo code two-way for 20% off. They say that something that's easy is like a walk in the park. Well, easier than a walk in the park, hit the subscribe button, be part of the two-way community, never miss an episode, be part of our conversations. Thank you for your service to America. And don't forget, you can now listen to the morning meeting and two-way tonight on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.